To ensure there were no misunderstandings, Liam leaned forward, his voice dripping with arrogance. "We wanted you to know in advance. Everything is going to us." My brother's words hit me like a punch to the gut, and suddenly the homemade lasagna on my plate, the very same dish Mom had used to lure me home, felt like lead in my stomach. For a moment, the dining room fell silent, broken only by the distant hum of cars beyond the quiet suburban cul-de-sac. My heart pounded in my ears as I stared across the polished cherrywood table at Liam and Leona, my younger twins. Both were smirking, their eyes gleaming with self-satisfaction. "Excuse me?" My voice trembled despite my efforts to steady it. "What do you mean by everything?" Exactly what he said, Sarah. Mom cut in sharply. Her smile vanished, replaced by a stubborn set to her lips. "Your father and I finalized the will, and we wanted you to hear it straight from us. The lake cottage, everything. It's going to Liam and Leona." I turned to Dad, hoping to catch the slightest hint of hesitation, a sign that this was a cruel joke or a misunderstanding. But he stared at the cutlery in front of him, avoiding my gaze. The silence that followed stretched on painfully until he finally spoke. His voice was quiet, carefully measured. "Sarah, you need to understand our reasoning," Dad said, slowly clasping his hands. "You're doing so well in life. Your mother and I are proud of the career and success you've achieved. But Liam and Leona, they're still finding themselves. They need more support." I blinked, holding back the stinging tears. Support. For years, I'd quietly shouldered the family's financial burdens, seeing it as my duty as the eldest daughter. Mortgage payments for their house, Liam's endless school changes, Leona's whims and expensive hobbies. I'd paid for it all without a word. Apparently that meant nothing. My heart clenched with bitter resentment as I looked at my parents. Their faces hardened against me. This betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. "So this is my reward for paying off your mortgage the last 4 years, I demanded. My voice was low but firm. "For covering tuition fees, for the $30,000 I put into the lake cottage renovations last summer. You're leaving me nothing because I've made something of myself?" Mom sighed theatrically, shaking her head. "This is exactly why we didn't want to tell you. You always make everything about money, Sarah. Family has never been your priority." Heat rushed to my cheeks, my fists clenching beneath the tablecloth. "Family has always been my priority," I shot back. "Every sacrifice I made was for this family. Because you asked me to, Mom. Because you said family sticks together." Liam snorted, leaning back in his chair and crossing his arms with a smug grin. "You're acting like a martyr. No one forced you to help. You just liked playing the hero." Leona giggled softly, twirling a strand of her glossy hair around her finger. Her eyes narrowed with mockery. "Maybe you thought if you threw enough money at us, Mom and Dad would finally love you as much as they love us?" The cruelty of her words struck deep, reopening a wound I'd spent years trying to ignore. My parents didn't react, didn't reprimand her. Their silence was louder than any justification they could have offered. They'd always spoiled Liam and Leona, protected them, excused every irresponsible step. And here I was, after years of sacrifice, being painted as greedy and selfish. Anger flared within me, burning away the last of my patience. "You're right, Liam," I said finally, forcing my voice to stay even. "No one forced me. But as of today, no one will make me feel guilty for no longer being this family's ATM. I'm done." I shoved my chair back and stood, ignoring their stunned faces. For a moment, the scent of marinara and baked garlic lingered in the air, a cruel reminder of what I'd foolishly hoped for, a warm family evening. Instead, I'd been lured into a trap, humiliated and rejected in the very house I'd helped pay for. Grabbing my coat from the hallway, I slammed the front door with a decisive thud, cutting myself off from the voices inside, voices that no longer meant anything to me. The cool Portland air hit my face, clearing my thoughts, but my heart still ached with disbelief. My own family had used me, discarded me, and made me feel worthless. I climbed into my car and slammed the door, gripping the steering wheel with trembling hands as tears finally streamed down my cheeks. During the quiet, lonely drive back to my downtown apartment, memories flooded me. Every financial sacrifice, every canceled vacation, every night spent on spreadsheets paying their bills to keep them comfortable, all done silently, without complaint, out of a misguided sense of love and duty. How naive I'd been. I'd believed my efforts were appreciated, respected. At home, my apartment felt strangely foreign, as if everything had been tainted by this revelation. I poured myself a large glass of Cabernet, the expensive bottle I'd been saving for a special occasion. Somehow, the bitter lesson of this night felt like the right moment. Settling onto the couch, I opened my banking app. Monthly payments, $1,800 labeled Parents' Mortgage, another $600 for utilities. They glowed on the screen. Without hesitation, I canceled both. A quiet sense of rebellion bubbled in my chest as the confirmations flashed on the screen. As the evening turned into night, I endlessly replayed the dinner conversation in my mind, anger giving way to deep sadness. The rejection wasn't just financial, it was emotional. My whole life I'd felt second-rate, and now it had been confirmed outright. But even in that pain, something new began to grow. A sense of freedom, a realization that my worth didn't depend on their validation. It was time to reclaim my life, to shed the expectations and obligations that had become chains on my spirit. I knew my parents, Liam and Leona, wouldn't let this go easily. There'd be calls, arguments, maybe even retaliation, but this night was a turning point. No matter how they pushed, I silently vowed to myself, I'm no longer a victim, and I won't accept disrespect disguised as duty. From now on, my life is mine. Finishing the last sip of wine, I smiled bitterly into the darkness. My family invited me home to announce they were leaving everything to Liam and Leona, but that night, they gave me something far more valuable: freedom. Sleep didn't come that night. I lay staring at the dark ceiling of my apartment, my mind endlessly looping through disbelief, pain, and anger. The city light softly flickered through the curtains, indifferent to the turmoil consuming me. Every time I closed my eyes, I relived those humiliating minutes at the table. Liam's smugness, the disdainful mockery in Leona's eyes, and worst of all, my parents' stony silence. Their silence cut deeper than my siblings' biting words. By morning, exhaustion had wrung out all my tears. I dragged myself out of bed, brewed a strong coffee, and sat at the kitchen table, numb. The morning news murmured in the background, but I wasn't listening. Memories assaulted me from every angle, relentless in their clarity. Had I been blind all these years? Or had I deliberately ignored the signs, desperately believing my family would value me for more than just the money I provided? Suddenly, my phone buzzed, vibrating sharply against the wooden table. It was Mom. My stomach twisted, and I let the call go to voicemail, not ready, or not able, to hear her voice so soon. A minute later, a voicemail notification popped up. Against my better judgment, I played it. "Sarah, please stop being so dramatic." Her voice carried its usual mix of irritation and guilt. "Call me back. You know families don't treat each other like this." A hollow laugh escaped my lips. How ironic. Family. Her favorite weapon for manipulation. Family only meant something when it served their needs. I deleted the message and set the phone aside, determined not to fall for her well-honed guilt trips. Over the next few days, the calls intensified. First Mom, then Dad, then Liam and Leona joined in, alternating between condescending lectures and sarcastic pleas. But there wasn't a hint of remorse in their voices, only growing irritation that their financial crutch had vanished. After a particularly venomous call from Leona, accusing me of being selfish and jealous, I blocked them all. A sense of peace settled over me. For the first time in years, it was fragile and unfamiliar. But beneath that relief, a dull, constant ache lingered, and I didn't know if it would ever fully go away. I threw myself into work, seeking solace in it. Bennett Construction's latest project, a modern medical complex in Sacramento, demanded my full attention. Meetings, blueprints, client walkthroughs. Tasks I'd always handled with ease now became a desperate escape from the reality waiting outside the office. I stayed late, took on extra trips, anything to delay facing the emptiness of my new, quiet evenings. 3 weeks passed without direct contact from my family, and I began to tentatively hope they'd accepted my decision and moved on. But deep down, I knew the truth. On Friday afternoon, a message appeared, flashing ominously on my screen. "Family meeting tonight. Sarah, you're expected to be there." My pulse spiked. I stared at the text, disbelief warring with indignation. I owed them nothing, not anymore. But curiosity, mixed with perhaps a foolish hope for reconciliation, won out. Before I could change my mind, I typed a single word: "Fine." Pulling up to my parents' house that evening felt surreal. Liam's flashy motorcycle and Leona's garish blue Kia were already parked outside, like twin symbols of their arrogance. Dread coiled sharply in my stomach as I approached the familiar front door, now feeling foreign and unwelcoming, like an enemy fortress. Mom opened the door, her forced smile barely masking her irritation. "Sarah, glad you finally showed up," she said dryly, stepping aside to let me into the house I once called home. Aunt Daisy was there too. She sat quietly in the corner of the living room, her eyes filled with sympathy but cautious. Her presence surprised me. She rarely got involved in family disputes. I sat across from her, my heart pounding, as my siblings walked into the room, openly glaring at me. Dad cleared his throat. "We called this meeting to set things straight, Sarah," he began sternly. "Your mother and I thought you'd come to your senses by now. Clearly, we were wrong." I swallowed a sharp retort, clenching my fists tightly. "Come to my senses?" My voice trembled despite my efforts to keep it steady. "You completely cut me out after everything I've done for you, every mortgage payment, every tuition check, and you expect me to come to my senses?" "Stop exaggerating," Mom snapped, rolling her eyes. "You helped, sure, but that was your duty as the eldest." I laughed bitterly. "My duty?" I repeated incredulously. "I built a career because you needed my money. I gave up vacations, friendships, relationships, all so you could live in this illusion of stability." "Oh, spare us your drama," Liam scoffed. "We didn't ask for your pity." "Exactly," Leona chimed in with a disdainful smirk. "Maybe if you weren't so busy playing family savior, you'd have a life of your own." Heat flooded my face, humiliation pulsing painfully beneath my skin. Aunt Daisy shifted uncomfortably but stayed silent. Her silence spoke louder than words. My parents remained quiet too, their faces stone cold, eyes averted. I stood abruptly, my chair screeching against the wooden floor. "You know what? You're right. This was my mistake, thinking I mattered here. I won't make it again." At the door, Dad's voice cut sharply behind me. "If you walk out now, Sarah, don't expect to be welcomed back." I froze. My hand gripped the doorknob, a lifetime of suppressed anger surging to the surface. "That's fine," I replied coldly, my voice trembling with restrained fury. I never felt welcome here anyway. Outside, under the cold stars, Tears burned hot trails down my cheeks. Each step to my car felt heavier than the last. The realization finally settled in me. My family had never truly valued me. I'd been convenient, disposable, unnecessary. Back home, I locked my apartment door tightly, determined not to let them hurt me anymore. I sat in the darkness, the silence now strangely comforting, wrapping around me like a shield. A soft knock at the door made me jump. Adrenaline flooded my veins. Cautiously, I peered through the peephole. It was Aunt Daisy, worry etched deeply into her face. I let her in silently. She immediately pulled me into a hug, her warmth and care radiating from the gentle embrace. "I'm so sorry, Sarah," she whispered. Her voice was thick with emotion. "They're wrong. You deserve so much better." Her words broke something in me, and the tears I'd been holding back spilled over. Daisy held me tightly, letting me release years of pent-up pain and bitterness. After a long silence, she spoke again, her voice firm with conviction. "They'll never admit it, but they're scared of losing control, scared of facing their mistakes." The recurring payments stared at me from the screen like silent accusations. $1,800 for my parents' mortgage, $600 for utilities, and countless transfers labeled family help. My cursor hovered over the cancel button, my breathing shallow and uneven despite the anger and humiliation. Guilt twisted painfully in my stomach, whispering old, false truths about duty and responsibility. I hesitated, Mom's voice echoing in my head. "Family sticks together, Sarah. Family sacrifices." But that night had shattered all illusions. Their betrayal, cold and callous, showed me the truth. I'd been nothing more than a financial convenience to them. I closed my eyes, Liam's smug smirk flashing vividly in my memory, solidifying my decision with painful clarity. With one resolute click, the mortgage payment was gone. Another click, and the utility payment stopped too. Relief washed over me, so strong I gasped. For the first time in years, I was no longer their lifeline. The chains had broken, exhaustion overtook me, and I woke up on the couch as dawn painted Portland's horizon in shades of pale lavender through the window. My phone buzzed insistently, jolting me from sleep. Dread immediately gripped my stomach. Unsurprisingly, Mom's name lit up the screen. I took a deep breath before answering. "Sarah, what have you done?" she demanded, skipping any greeting. Her voice trembled with rage. "The bank called. They're threatening to take the house. You had no right." "No right," I interrupted, my voice surprisingly calm. "Mom, I voluntarily paid your mortgage. But after everything, I'm done being your financial support." "You're our daughter," she shrieked. "You owe us respect." "I don't owe you anything," I shot back, anger flaring again. "Respect isn't a one-way street. You made your choice. Now I've made mine." "Sarah," she began again, desperation creeping into her tone, but I cut her off firmly. "I'm sorry you're upset, Mom, but I can't do this anymore. Goodbye." I hung up quickly, my hands shaking. The calls didn't stop. Dad, Leona, even distant relatives, all trying to manipulate, guilt-trip, or shame me into compliance. Eventually, I silenced my phone, a strange exhilaration rising from this quiet rebellion. Weeks passed, and life slowly found balance. Work became more than a distraction. It was a source of genuine fulfillment. I booked a trip to Italy I'd dreamed of for years, reveling in the freedom to spend my earnings on myself. A new sense of independence filled my days, though loneliness sometimes crept in at night, reminding me of the severed family ties. Then came Sacramento, a 3-day trip for final inspections on our new medical complex. The assignment was perfectly timed, a welcome escape from the lingering sadness and family drama. Returning late Friday evening, exhaustion weighed heavily on my shoulders as I dragged my suitcase to my apartment. But something was wrong. The closer I got, the clearer it became. Thick, hardened foam had absurdly spread around my door frame. My stomach dropped. My apartment was completely sealed. My heart raced as I touched the foam. It was dry and solid as stone, deliberately sprayed into every crevice to keep me out. Panic turned to anger. Only one person could pull off such a cruel, petty stunt: Liam. I immediately called the property management company, pacing the hallway in fury. After hours of anxious waiting, a tired locksmith arrived, shaking his head sympathetically at the damage. He carefully chipped away at the foam, muttering about the intentional nature of the vandalism. "Someone really didn't want you getting inside," he noted grimly. My blood boiled at the thought of Liam, smugly sealing my door, punishing me for daring to stand up for myself. By the time the locksmith finished, it was nearly midnight. Inside, adrenaline kept me awake, anger burning too brightly to sleep. Sitting at my computer, I remembered the hallway security camera. My heart pounded as I reviewed the footage until I saw a familiar figure. There he was, Liam. A baseball cap pulled low, a hoodie obscuring his face. But it was him. My stomach twisted as I watched him methodically sabotage my door with a look of malicious glee. The betrayal cut deeper, now fresh and raw. This wasn't just financial spite. It was personal, intentional cruelty. With trembling hands, I saved the footage, anger turning into resolve. I hesitated for a moment. He's my brother. Could I turn him over to the authorities? But this had gone beyond family squabbles. Liam had crossed a line from selfishness to crime. I called Aunt Daisy for advice. "Sarah," Daisy's voice was soft but firm, "if you don't hold Liam accountable now, he'll never learn. Protecting him isn't kindness, it's enabling." Her wisdom steadied me. The next morning, I filed a police report, submitting the footage as evidence. My family's fury erupted. Angry voicemails flooded my phone, calling me vindictive, heartless, a traitor. But beneath their rage, there was desperation. A sudden realization that I was serious and no longer under their control. Liam faced real consequences. Charges loomed if he didn't compensate for the damage. Finally, Dad called, his voice fragile with forced calm. "What do you want, Sarah? To drop the charges?" $3,000, I replied instantly. The exact cost of the repairs. "That's extortion," he barked indignantly. "No," I said coldly, surprised by the strength in my voice. "It's consequences. Liam damaged my home. He either pays or he faces the law. His choice." He hung up abruptly. The next morning, a transfer of exactly $3,000 appeared in my account with a bitter note: "Final payment." Despite their obvious resentment, a sense of victory sparked within me. Not for the money, but because I'd finally forced them to acknowledge that their actions have a cost. Liam's petty stunt hadn't broken me. It had solidified my newfound independence. Standing alone in the doorway of my repaired apartment, I took a deep breath, savoring the bittersweet triumph. Yes, my family had betrayed me, hurt me, pushed me to my limits. But they'd unwittingly set me free. And now I could build a life on my terms, answering only to myself. After Liam's vandalism, my family's silence became deafening. Days turned into weeks with no contact, no angry messages, no desperate pleas. At first, their quiet felt like relief, but it soon became an oppressive reminder of what I'd lost. My parents had chosen their side, and, once again, it wasn't mine. Then the rumors started. Aunt Daisy called late one evening, her voice filled with quiet concern. "Sarah, your mom's been telling everyone. She's saying you abandoned them, that you're trying to leave your parents homeless." My heart sank. "That's ridiculous," I whispered, gripping the phone tighter. "I didn't have a choice." "I know," Daisy soothed gently. But others don't. They think you're selfish, that you ditched your family out of greed. The accusation twisted painfully in my gut. My parents were rewriting history, casting me as the villain. Their martyrdom was complete. My years of silent sacrifice, countless canceled vacations, deferred goals, my own dreams, were erased as if they'd never existed. I paced my apartment restlessly, longing giving way to a fierce need to reclaim my voice. After years of silence, I was done letting others tell my story. With determination, I sat at my laptop, my fingers flying over the keys as I poured out a detailed post on Facebook. I laid it all out. The monthly mortgage payments, Liam's tuition and irresponsibility, Leona's endless demands, even Liam's vandalism. Every sacrifice, every dollar, every drop of quiet resentment spilled onto the screen. My hands shook as I hit post, releasing years of pain for the world to see. Within minutes, comments flooded in, reactions swift and varied. Some expressed shock and sympathy, stunned by how long I'd been used. Others harshly judged, accusing me of airing family matters publicly. Then came a furious message from Mom. "How dare you humiliate us like this? You had no right." Her indignation ignited something primal in me. "No right?" I snapped, calling her back immediately. "You lied to everyone. After everything I did, you called me selfish, a villain just to save face." "You abandoned us," she hissed bitterly, "all because we decided to help your brother and sister who needed it more." "No," I corrected, my voice shaking. "You abandoned me when you decided my efforts meant nothing. You raised Liam and Leona to demand without accountability, and now you're paying for it." "You destroyed our family," she whispered coldly. "No," I replied quietly. "You did that yourselves." I hung up, my heart pounding, tears blurring my vision. Guilt gnawed at me, relentless and persistent. Had I destroyed my family by refusing to tolerate their betrayal? Was demanding respect a mistake? A knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. I opened it to find Aunt Daisy, worry etched on her face. Wordlessly, she pulled me into a tight hug, offering the support I so desperately needed. "Sarah, your post changed everything," she said softly, stepping inside. "Some relatives finally see the truth. They had no idea how much your mom hid your help all these years." I took a deep breath, relief mingling with sadness. "Does it even matter now?" "Yes," Daisy said firmly, squeezing my hand. "Your voice matters. You deserve recognition for everything you've done. Your parents chose lies. That doesn't mean you have to live in their shadow." Her words resonated deeply, planting seeds of strength in my wounded heart. The longing began to fade, replaced by cautious hope. I was no longer hiding, no longer silent. The truth was painful, raw, but it was mine. A few days later, my phone buzzed. A message from Leona, short and venomous. "Thanks a lot. Now everyone hates us. Hope you're proud." I stared at her words, feeling a strange detachment. For so long I'd chased their approval, craved acceptance at any cost. But now, standing amid the ruins of our relationship, I understood. Their approval had never been genuine. It always came with conditions, sacrifices, strings. I replied calmly, typing with confidence. "I'm done apologizing for your actions. Maybe now you'll learn accountability?" She didn't respond. Weeks passed. Harsh judgments from distant relatives gradually faded. My parents struggled financially without my support, forced to take on odd jobs and face the debts they'd ignored for years. Liam continued his irresponsible ways, refusing any accountability. Leona remained bitter, unwilling to change. Meanwhile, my life quietly blossomed. For the first time, my decisions were truly mine. I was free, not just financially, but emotionally. I'd weathered the pain of the truth, stood firm against my family's betrayal, and emerged from the chaos with a strength I hadn't known I possessed. My parents thought leaving me nothing in their will would break me, but they'd given me the greatest gift of all, the courage to choose myself. 6 months later, the toxic shadow of my family had vanished from my life. At first, it was hard. The silence haunted me like a ghost, a reminder of lost connections and broken bonds. But gradually, the sharp edges of betrayal softened, replaced by something sweeter. The realization that I'd broken free. I invested in my career, earning a promotion with a corner office and a salary I'd once only dreamed of. For the first time, my money was truly mine. No mortgage payments drained my stability, no late-night transfers for Liam's latest crisis or Leona's whims. Every dollar was proof of my freedom, a testament that choosing myself wasn't selfish. It was necessary. With that freedom, I booked a 2-week trip to Italy I'd long delayed out of guilt for spending on myself. Standing on a balcony overlooking a sunset in Florence, I felt a profound release. For the first time in years, joy wasn't tainted by obligations or guilt. Back home, I joined a hiking group, reclaiming weekends lost to family drama. On one hike, I met Alex, whose smile and thoughtful conversations became a balm for my wounds. His quiet support filled the void my family left, showing me I was worthy of unconditional love. The months passed peacefully until a cold November evening when a knock at the door broke the silence. I opened it to find Aunt Daisy in her favorite sweater, holding 2 steaming cups of coffee. Without a word, she stepped inside and hugged me tightly. "I'm so proud of you, Sarah," she whispered, tears shining in her eyes. "You deserve all the happiness you can find." Daisy finally spoke, her voice soft. "Your parents still blame you. They won't change, Sarah. But you've grown stronger. You chose yourself. That's courage." "I still think about them," I admitted quietly, emotion tightening my throat. "Not because I regret leaving, but because it hurts knowing they never loved me the way I loved them." Daisy gently squeezed my hand. "Sometimes, sweetheart, family isn't about blood. It's about those who see your worth." Her words struck deep, filling a void I hadn't realized was there. We talked late into the night, sharing stories and laughter, and I realized something. Family isn't just blood. It's those who genuinely value and respect you. In the following weeks, whispers from distant relatives painted a grim picture of my parents' lives. Mom worked early shifts at a diner, exhaustion etched into her face, while Dad took a grueling job at a hardware store, working beyond what his age allowed. Liam had quit yet another job, still refusing responsibility, and Leona was stuck in her fantasy of becoming an Instagram influencer, a dream that would never come true. On Christmas Eve, instead of regret or loneliness, I hosted friends to celebrate friendship and independence. Aunt Daisy joined, smiling knowingly as she watched me embrace a life I'd once thought I didn't deserve. As the night settled and my guests left, I stood alone, gazing at Portland's lights. The pain of betrayal was still there, a fading scar, but that pain had made me stronger, a person unafraid to value herself. My parents tried to punish me by cutting me out of their will, but their betrayal gave me something priceless: freedom. In the end, their rejection became my greatest liberation. They left everything to Liam and Leona, but they gave me the chance to choose myself. What would you have done in my place? Would you have kept supporting your family at the cost of your own happiness? Or would you have walked away, even if it meant losing them forever? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.